You know, when you think about it, even the tiniest living things need some serious protection to survive. And it turns out, bacteria have one of the most incredible designs in all of nature, a microscopic suit of armor. So let's dive right in and see what makes this stuff tick.
So what is it? What makes bacteria so unbelievably tough? How can something that small be so darn resilient? Well, that's the big question we're going to unpack today, and the answer is all about their amazing architecture.
But hey, before we can really appreciate the armor, we've got to meet the organism that's actually wearing it. And that story starts with a type of cell called a prokaryote, one of the earliest forms of life on this planet. And the name itself gives you a huge clue. Prokaryote literally comes from the Greek for before nucleus. And that's exactly what it is. It's a cell that doesn't have a neat little membrane-bound nucleus like our cells do. Instead, its DNA just kind of hangs out in a general region. This super simple design is what it's all about.
All right, let's take a quick tour. You've got the nucleoid, that's the area with all the genetic info. Then there's the plasma membrane, acting as the cell's inner gatekeeper. You've got ribosomes, which are the tiny protein factories. And then wrapped around all of that, you have the cell wall, that tough outer shell that's the absolute star of our show today.
So let's zoom in on that wall. This thing isn't just some passive container. No way. It's a dynamic, essential piece of survival gear, and it's absolutely critical for keeping the bacterium alive out there.
So what's it actually do? Well, for starters, it gives the cell its structure and its shape, whether it's a little sphere or a rod. But here's its most important job. It stops the cell from exploding. See, bacteria are often in watery places, and water is always trying to rush inside. Without that super strong wall pushing back, the cell would just swell up and pop, just like a water balloon.
So what in the world is this material that can handle all that pressure? The secret ingredient has a bit of a mouthful of a name, peptidoglycan. And trust me, it's one of the most amazing biomaterials on Earth. Now here's the part that is just going to blow your mind. Peptidoglycan isn't just a bunch of molecules stuck together. The entire cell wall is basically one single gigantic molecule, a massive mesh that wraps completely around the cell. Think of it like a perfectly seamless bag woven from just one continuous thread. It's incredible.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. A mesh. How can something that's basically full of holes be strong? Well, let's think about it this way. Picture a simple chain link fence. That fence is super tough, right? It's really hard to push over, but at the same time, it has some give. It's flexible. And that is a perfect analogy for how peptidoglycan works. It creates this sac that's unbelievably strong, but it's also pliable enough to move and grow with the living cell inside. But just when you think you've got it figured out, it gets even more interesting. It turns out, not all of these bacterial walls are built the same way. In fact, one of the biggest dividing lines in the entire bacterial world comes down to two different blueprints for this peptidoglycan wall. We call them gram-positive and gram-negative. A gram-positive bacterium has this really thick, exposed layer of peptidoglycan as its main outer shield. But a gram-negative one, it has a much thinner peptidoglycan layer that's actually sandwiched between the inner membrane and a second outer membrane. And the differences here are pretty dramatic. I mean, look at the thickness. The gram-positive wall can be over 10 times thicker. Each type also has its own unique reinforcing molecules. Gram-positives have these things called teichoic acids running through the wall, almost like rebar in concrete. Gram-negatives, on the other hand, have that extra outer membrane, and it's studded with a molecule called lipopolysaccharide, or LPS. To make it real, Staph aureus is your classic gram-positive, and good old E. coli is a famous gram-negative. Okay, so a thick wall versus a thin, sandwiched wall. It might sound like a pretty minor difference in the grand scheme of things, but why does this one little structural detail matter so much? Oh, it's not a minor detail at all. This has huge real-world consequences. It's one of the main ways we classify bacteria, and it's the whole reason the gram stain, a test used in hospitals every single day, even works. But here's the real kicker. It's a game changer for medicine. That extra outer membrane on gram-negative bacteria, it acts like a second shield, making it much, much harder for a lot of our antibiotics to get in and do their job. And that's really the big takeaway here. One single microscopic layer, whether it's thick and on the outside or thin and tucked away, changes everything. It changes how the bacterium lives, and it changes how we fight it. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other tiny, invisible designs are out there, quietly shaping our entire world?